All right, everyone. Vikings make their selection in the first round, number 24 overall. They stick and pick and take offensive lineman Donovan Jackson from Ohio State. And that completes their overhaul this offseason of the offensive line. We debated for the last few weeks, would the Vikings stick and pick, or would there be a prospect available at number 24 that would compel other teams to trade up and the Vikings would be able to trade back? And that was really the number one question that we talked about when we previewed the NFL draft from the perspective of the Minnesota Vikings. We now have the answer. The answer is they stick and pick. They take an offensive lineman. Other positions bandied about in this conversation regarding the Vikings and the NFL draft included defensive tackle Derek Harmon, Nolan from Ole Miss, Kenneth Grant from Michigan, perhaps some safeties, Nick Nwari from South Carolina, Malachi Starks from Georgia. You had Jade Barron, who's kind of hanging around in the middle part of the first round. I wondered if the Vikings would be surprised that he was available. You had some thoughts about Omarion Hampton as a running back, maybe a tight end or a receiver. So lots of things on the periphery there for the Minnesota Vikings in the first round that we wondered about. But it all came full circle when the Vikings decide to take an offensive guard. And the reason I say it all comes full circle is because back at the combine, I thought that head coach Kevin O'Connell and GM Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah had some pretty blunt and pointed remarks about wanting to get better in the trenches. If they wanted to take the next step as an organization, as a franchise, competitively, and go to the next level, they were going to have to get better in the trenches. And we saw the Vikings do just that in free agency, where they signed a new center, Ryan Kelly, to replace Garrett Bradbury, and they signed a new right guard in Will Fries to replace Ed Ingram and Dalton Reisner. And then they continued the overhaul in the trenches by signing two defensive tackles, Jonathan Allen, signing him away from the Washington Commanders, and then signing Javon Hargrave away from the San Francisco 49ers. So four, I would call priority type free agents signed by the Vikings, all four in the trenches. And so it comes full circle because when it comes to putting your money where your mouth is in the first round of the draft, the Vikings did not trade back. The Vikings did not take a corner. They did not take a safety. They did not take a tight end or a wide receiver or a running back. They took an offensive lineman and they complete their overhaul up front. They have three new starting interior members of their offensive line. Donovan Jackson, who they just took in the first round, will be the left guard. When all is said and done, they have a new center in Ryan Kelly and a new right guard in Will Fries. And then they have two bookend tackles who are outstanding coming back. Brian O'Neill as a right tackle, and then once healthy, when he recovers from his season-ending knee injury from last year, left tackle Christian Darrisaw, who for my money is one of the best in the NFL. So this offensive line overhaul is not just an overhaul, it's an impressive overhaul, and it should make a big difference for this Vikings offense. Keep in mind a Vikings offense that will be featuring a first-time starter at quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, and a Vikings offense, everyone, who struggled to run the ball last year and particularly struggled in the red zone last year. You get Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, and Will Fries up front on your interior, and you are going to be better running the ball, and you are going to be better in the red zone. So not a sexy pick for the Minnesota Vikings at right guard, but probably an effective pick for the Vikings offense at right guard, selecting Donovan Jackson. I don't think it's a hard one to sell. One interesting tangent of this selection, though, for the Vikings is you saw two trades right after the Vikings selected, which tells me the phones were probably ringing. So I'm curious what the Vikings perspective is of those trade offers. Were they seriously considering moving back out of the first round or back later into the first round? And if so, who were the teams who were calling? What was the nature of the offers? Could the Vikings have gotten a similarly graded player to Donovan Jackson if they had moved back, acquired more picks? Because the Vikings are short on picks in this draft, as we all know. Entering the draft, they had 4. They now have 3. Could they have moved back picked up more picks and still gotten a player of Donovan Jackson's caliber? That will be a question that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah will be asked in his next press conference, which I assume will happen tonight. And if not tonight, very early tomorrow. But I think that is closer to picking nits than it is to substantive debate. I think the Vikings did a great thing, sticking and picking, getting a big-time offensive lineman in Donovan Jackson from a big-time school. Donovan Jackson, an offensive lineman, by the way, who I think started 31 games as a left guard, but then slid outside to play left tackle when Ohio State's starting left tackle, Josh Simmons, was injured and lost for the season. So Donovan Jackson displaying some versatility and some athleticism and sliding outside to play left tackle as well, which is a positive indication of his pass rushing ability. We know he's a good run blocker. So I like the pick. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. Excited to discuss this and more Vikings picks with you on social media. Thank you for watching this live or recorded edition of Believe in Vikings. More to come very, very soon.